Greetings, I'm Abigail, and I want to make it clear from the start that the names I'll be mentioning are not real. I'm safeguarding my and my parents' identities, hence the use of pseudonyms. The focus of my narrative revolves around my younger sister Brenda, who, over the years, has exhibited entitled and manipulative behavior. While my parents, Ethan and Amy, were not mistreating me, they did tend to favor Brenda due to her younger age. Initially, I didn't pay much heed to the preferential treatment. In fact, I loved and spoiled Brenda myself. However, things took a turn as she grew older. Although our family led a modest life despite being financially well off, Brenda consistently desired more. She expressed dissatisfaction with our simple lifestyle and insisted on increased spending, particularly on herself. When our parents resisted, she resorted to manipulation, often playing the victim card. Her claims of being mistreated at her various jobs and facing bullying were always supported by our parents, who ended up providing her with financial assistance. Seeing through her deceit, I confronted Brenda, expressing my disapproval of her actions. I told her that fabricating stories about bullying and refusing to hold down a job was unacceptable. In response, Brenda dismissed my concerns, belittling my job and lifestyle choices. She argued that our parents, with their abundance of money, should financially support her since they supposedly didn't utilize it themselves. I cautioned her against relying on our parents' wealth and emphasized the importance of finding employment for a fulfilling life. Unmoved, Brenda rejected my advice, dismissing our parents as naive and lacking in sophistication. I cannot conform to their way of life, and besides, being their daughter grants me a claim to their wealth. Brenda's reasoning always repelled me, yet I hesitated to expose her to our parents. I shielded her, and at times overlooked her fabrications to spare our parents from devastation. Despite my efforts, my parents adored her, and revealing the truth about her behavior would have shattered them. I assisted both my parents and Brenda to prevent them from depleting their finances solely on her, although she never acknowledged or appreciated my support. For years, Brenda led a lavish lifestyle funded by our parents. Despite their hope that she would eventually become independent, that day never arrived. Brenda persisted in her irresponsible ways, consistently playing the victim to our trusting parents. What became painfully clear was her utter lack of concern for me or our parents. Tragedy struck a year ago when our parents were involved in a severe accident, leaving them in critical condition. The doctor conveyed bleak chances of survival. While I struggled with the imminent loss, Brenda callously remarked, "Wow, looks like their time is up. I can't believe it took them so long. I wonder how much longer it'll be." The doctor's grim prognosis didn't faze her. Shocked, I confronted her, questioning her lack of empathy. Unmoved, she callously declared that our parents were only good for money and that their absence would be even better. With little hope for our parents' recovery, Brenda nonchalantly expressed her intention to leave. She callously instructed me not to contact her unnecessarily and to reach out only with news of their passing. Her focus shifted immediately to inheriting their assets. Appalled, I implored her to reconsider, emphasizing the gravity of our parents' situation. In response, Brenda callously stated that she had no reason to stay and promptly left, leaving me bewildered and distraught. I'm aware that Mom and Dad intend to leave me the majority of their assets. Being the financially strained, unemployed daughter, they assured me of this. Consequently, I see no reason to remain here any longer. I'm taking a break and will return when my inheritance is prepared. Goodbye. I was shocked by Brenda's actions. Her cruel tactics within our family triggered a mix of rage and sadness. Despite that, I remained steadfast for my parents. I depleted my bank account to ensure they received the best treatment. After a month of struggle, I managed to bring them home. However, Brenda never showed up or called again. When my parents expressed a desire to see her, she didn't respond to my calls. Around 3 weeks after my parents returned home, they summoned an estate lawyer to our house. Confused, I asked them why the lawyer was there. They explained that considering recent events, they lacked a proper will and wanted to ensure everything was in order. They had decided on a 90-30 split of their assets, with Brenda receiving more due to her financial needs. They expressed concern for her future, citing promises made to her when we first met. While I believed an equal split would have been fair, my parents were swayed by Brenda's apparent financial struggles. To my horror, they assumed I would not miss the money, not realizing that I had already used my funds to help my sister out of debt. What unsettled me the most was discovering that Brenda had manipulated them for a long time, orchestrating a plan to secure the majority of the inheritance. My parents, deceived by her feigned distress, were on the verge of giving away their hard-earned money to a selfish manipulator. After enduring years of witnessing my parents being taken advantage of, I reached a breaking point. I couldn't bear it any longer and decided to put an end to Brenda's manipulative game for the sake of my parents. They didn't deserve to be deceived in this way. I gathered the courage to speak up and told Mom and Dad that they should reconsider their decision to hand over a significant portion of their assets to Brenda. I questioned their rationale, expressing my concern about the unequal distribution and highlighting Brenda's seemingly undeserving circumstances. My parents questioned my objection, asking what was wrong with their decision. I acknowledged that we might not be splitting the assets equally, but I felt the need to advocate for a fairer distribution. I pointed out Brenda's apparent hardship, emphasizing that she needed their help more. I contrasted her situation with my own, highlighting my achievements and stable life. Seizing the opportunity, I disclosed everything about Brenda, from her fake hardships at work to her mental health struggles and lack of financial constraints. Despite presenting evidence to support my claims, my parents appeared shocked and in disbelief. I had to emphasize Brenda's absence during their health crisis in the hospital, further revealing her true nature. Regrettably, my parents seemed resistant to accepting the truth, prompting me to apologize for revealing these painful details. I explained that I could no longer shield Brenda, believing that, despite her manipulative behavior, she genuinely loved them. However, her true colors emerged after their accident, and I could no longer protect her. Despite their deep denial, I persisted in presenting the facts. I acknowledged the difficulty in accepting the truth, but urged them to consider whether Brenda had genuinely cared for them. I reminded them that Brenda didn't even call once during their hospitalization, raising doubts about her supposed job search and promises. I concluded by expressing my wish that Brenda was a better person, but the reality pointed to a different truth that my parents deserved to know. She might have been aiming to secure employment and improve her situation. It's possible she was facing challenges and urgently needed a job, preventing her from reaching out to us. However, Ethan, I doubt that's the case. I checked her social media yesterday, and she's currently on a beach vacation 2 states away. It seems Abigail's assessment is closer to the truth. I don't want to tarnish my sister's reputation, but recent actions have pushed me to my limit. I'd prefer you both not to invest money in someone who may not deserve it. I'd rather see it donated to charity. If you still have doubts, why not let me call Brenda and clarify things for you? My parents gave me the green light to contact Brenda. They were desperate for her to inquire about their health. The hope and vulnerability in their eyes pained me. Praying that Brenda wouldn't say anything drastic, I also feared she wouldn't answer my calls. After about 10 attempts, she finally picked up. However, instead of easing into the conversation, Brenda hit me with the most terrible question imaginable. She asked, "Are they already dead? You wouldn't have called me so many times if they weren't." I clarified that they were still alive, but her response shocked me. She casually mentioned our parents' death, insinuating they left all their money to her. It seems she manipulated them by playing the victim card, always knowing how to extract money from them. She even expressed pity for me, suggesting I should have learned from her successful tactics. I find it deeply shameful, Brenda, that I did nothing but still received a substantial sum of money. Aren't you even a bit remorseful about our parents' passing? Are you devoid of any sadness? Abigail questioned. Brenda responded callously. Why would I be sad, Abigail? Do you have any idea how much acting I had to do to extract money from them? They were cheap and had low standards. Bringing friends home was embarrassing. They were only good at making money. Now that it's all mine, there's no reason to be sad. I'm just relieved I won't have to beg for money anymore. Congratulations to me then. Abigail decided to cut ties with Brenda, stating, "Our parents were the only reason I stayed in touch with you. Now I have no reason to contact you, and you can keep the money. I never pursued it anyway." Russell chimed in, "I don't care if you don't stay in contact with me. Just know this, I won't be responsible for the funeral or anything. It's a waste of my money. Since you want to be a generous daughter, you can handle it yourself." Brenda laughed at this and callously said, "I won't be responsible for the funeral or anything. It's a waste of my money." Her parents were horrified by Brenda's words. Abigail, shocked by Brenda's cold reaction, seized the opportunity to correct her. "You assumed our parents had died so quickly. Let me tell you, Brenda, they are very well and sitting right next to me." They heard the entire conversation. Brenda accused Abigail of lying and claimed their parents were in terrible condition after the accident, arguing there was no way they could have recovered so fast. She accused Abigail of scheming to take away her inheritance, insisting Abigail must be jealous because their parents left everything to her. At this point, Abigail's parents intervened, expressing their anger and readiness to confront Brenda. The situation was tense, and emotions were about to erupt. It was evident that Brenda had severely damaged their parents' trust. Despite being loving, their parents were equally strict and did not tolerate disrespect. In response to Brenda's callous remarks, the father clarified, "Me and Amy are both alive and well. Brenda, thanks for letting us know what you think of us." The mother anxiously inquired about the father's well-being, expressing immense relief upon learning he was fine. When asked about her status, Amy responded affirmatively, prompting Brenda to insensitively remark, "It must be a sad blow to you, isn't it?" Amy, offended by Brenda's insinuations, insisted she was genuinely glad that her parents were well and alive. The father, however, confronted Brenda, pointing out her lack of concern. He mentioned witnessing Brenda rejecting Abigail's calls and accused her of assuming they were dead and seeming delighted by the notion. Brenda attempted to deflect blame, claiming she couldn't visit because she was busy seeking employment. However, her parents had seen her social media posts, and Abigail had put the call on loudspeaker, exposing Brenda's lies. Panicking, Brenda hung up the call and later called Abigail back in a fit of rage, accusing her of deliberately ruining her image. She lamented that she would now have to beg to regain their parents' favor. Despite Brenda's attempts to manipulate the situation, the truth remained apparent to the family. Abigail reminded Brenda that she was still on loudspeaker, and her outburst had been heard. Brenda continued to plead, attributing her hurtful remarks to a coping mechanism during a challenging time in her life. Amy and the father were not swayed, asserting that Brenda had no shame, especially after insulting their parents and planning to enjoy their inheritance. The atmosphere was charged with tension and disappointment. "Brenda, it's apparent that your focus has solely been on our parents' inheritance. Your pretense of financial struggle is unnecessary. Just so you're aware, while you were reveling in our supposed demise and mocking Abigail, we were consulting with a lawyer. Yes, Brenda, we were discussing our will. Given your recent behavior, Amy and I have decided that we no longer wish to leave you anything." Amy affirmed, "Absolutely, Ethan. There's no way I would leave anything to an ungrateful child like Brenda. What you've done today was truly disgusting." Brenda pleaded with her parents not to disinherit her, attributing her actions to stress and regret. However, Ethan, having covered for Brenda numerous times in the past, finally expressed his refusal to support her this time. He highlighted that Brenda had gone too far by wishing for their parents' death and uttering hurtful words. Abigail, once Brenda's supporter, declared that she would never forgive Brenda for her actions. Brenda, attempting to recruit Abigail's support, was met with a stubborn refusal. Abigail acknowledged that people make mistakes, but what Brenda had done was beyond forgiveness. Desperate for redemption, Brenda offered to go to their parents and beg for forgiveness, but Ethan clarified that there was no need. Both Ethan and Amy, feeling betrayed by Brenda's actions, announced their decision to disinherit her and bequeath everything to Abigail. The lawyer was instructed to proceed with the will on those terms, and there was no room for reconsideration. Ethan's final words were firm. "We won't change our minds. Not now, not tomorrow, not ever." Amy echoed these sentiments, and with that, the call was abruptly ended as Brenda cried and pleaded for forgiveness. The atmosphere was heavy with sadness, but above all, there was an overwhelming sense of anger and betrayal. I did my best to console my parents during this challenging time. I urged them to carefully consider their decision to disinherit Brenda, hoping to prevent future regrets. Upon hearing my words, my parents began to cry, realizing the extent to which they had neglected and taken me for granted. Despite their newfound awareness, they proceeded with their choice to disinherit Brenda. About 4 days later, Brenda appeared at my parents' doorstep. She had been on a trip with friends and took some time to reach us in person. However, she continued to harass me and my parents through calls and texts. When Brenda arrived, she looked disheveled, and the gravity of the situation seemed to have finally dawned on her. She pleaded with us for forgiveness, but my dad firmly told her to leave the property, insisting she never come near us again. My mom even threatened to involve the police if she refused to depart. Brenda left after realizing there was nothing she could do. Mom and Dad stopped paying her rent, resulting in her losing her apartment within 5 months. None of her friends offered her a place to stay, knowing she had no money and was unwilling to work. Despite returning to our doorstep to beg, she was ignored. The last I heard, she was crashing on a friend's couch, given a month to find a new place. Brenda began applying for jobs at local grocery stores and cleaning services, but her tarnished reputation might hinder her chances. It seems that her true character has become widely known. As for me, I have moved in permanently with my parents. They are still grappling with mental and physical struggles after the accident, and I'm doing my best to take care of them. Despite the circumstances, the three of us are as happy as we can be.